All right, my great friends, this is Mr. Davis again. I'm going to try to do a lecture today, kind of a lecture in Edpuzzle. We're also going to watch a couple of videos about Henry Ford and the Wright Brothers and Thomas Edison here. So really for Wednesday, the only thing you need to complete is you just need to watch this lecture on Edpuzzle. We'll probably try to assign it to you, but then also give you the link to do it. Since there was a little bit of some issues getting it shared with everybody the first time, hopefully it goes a little bit smoother. So for Wednesday's content, the only thing you'll have to do is watch this lecture. Thursday, I'd put up there that you were going to need to turn in a flashcard for 5 out of 5 on your quiz. So Friday, I'm going to be posting a quiz, and you get 5 out of 5 on the quiz if you show me your flashcard. But the quiz is going to be worth, I believe I said, 20 points. So there's going to be 15 questions, and then the 5 out of 5 section comes from your flashcard. If that's confusing, just go back and reread what I wrote, but I think it's pretty clear. This is about where we left off, so I'm going to kind of go pretty fast through here. So let me go to the present button. We talked about inventions the other day. We kind of left off right here. It's like the first industrial revolution versus the second industrial revolution, and this is the big thing right here. There's going to be electricity created in this second industrial revolution. The railroads are going to be built in the first first industrial revolution, but steel is going to make railroads better. It's going to make buildings better. Also going to find petroleum. We still use coal today. There's tons of coal in Kentucky, but petroleum is going to really be beneficial here. And this is, I think I described that photo the other day in the other day's lecture. We talked a little bit about the steel making process with Henry Bessemer created this process. Steel is going to replace iron in America. This says by 1910, hydroelectric power stations and coal-fired steam-generated plants sent out power from a common source. So this is kind of where we pick up here. So Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell, they are two American brothers here, not bros in the sense of not blood brothers, but just bros. And they're going to be game changers because Thomas Edison is going to create the light bulb and really just show us how we can use electricity. And Alexander Graham Bell is going to show us how we can use the telephone. So they were pretty impressive guys, geniuses ahead of their time. I'll just read this slide here. Homes and cities began to have electric lights. Edison patented his electric light bulb in 1878. He formed the Edison Electric Company in New York City. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1876, and in 1901 sent radio waves across the Atlantic. So we will see if this works here for us. I'm going to go back out of here, and I'm going to see if we can play this video, just like we would in class. I'll pause it here. Okay, now we're going to watch this video.
Thomas Edison gave us the electric light bulb and is remembered as one of the greatest inventors of all time.
Without Thomas Edison, we wouldn't even recognize the world as we see it today. Every time we turn on a light switch or an electric motor, we see the fingerprints of his innovation.
Born in 1854 in Milan, Ohio, Edison's first job was selling newspapers on the railroad. By age 15, he was a telegraph operator, where he became interested in electrical science.
Edison set out to be an inventor. He hadn't really gone to school to be a scientist or engineer. But by the time he set up his invention factory in Menlo Park, he was producing inventions the way we would produce machines.
Edison's first invention to sell was an improved stock ticker, which was a huge success. With his proceeds, Edison created a research laboratory at Menlo Park, New Jersey in 1876.
The Menlo Park laboratory that Edison set up was the first of its kind. Today we would have called it an incubator, but at the time it was unique.
In 1880, Edison came upon a really practical incandescent bulb using a carbon filament and also an electrical generating system to distribute the electricity to these light bulbs, which fundamentally changed the way that we live. Our society suddenly became a 24-hour society.
Thomas Edison acquired a staggering 1,093 patents in his lifetime.
The storage battery, the motion picture projector, the motion picture camera, the phonograph or record player as we would call it nowadays.
We take for granted that we can listen to any music we want to hear at any time without having to go to a concert hall. But that was not possible before Edison. Thomas Edison made music and pictures more accessible.
In 1928, Congress valued Edison's work at $15 billion when it awarded Edison the Congressional Gold Medal. When Edison died in 1931 at the age of 84, his estate was only worth $12 million due to decades of defending his patents in court and the Great Depression.
Most of Thomas Edison's research was not to understand why something behaved the way it did, but try to understand how to make it better. Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And I think we could all learn from that.
Okay, so what a beast Thomas Edison was. So let me go back to our notes here. So that was Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell. One of the things they say is without Edison, we would not, you wouldn't recognize the world today. What I like to say is that probably somebody was going to come around and create that after Edison. So thankfully it was there. I mean, he had 1,093 patents. But somebody probably would have created electricity, but they probably wouldn't have made it as efficiently as he did, and they probably wouldn't have continued on to make it even more incredible stuff. So we're really fortunate and lucky to have him. It's ironic they showed New York City. The Times Square right now is pretty much shut down. I mean, like the lights will be on, but there's not people walking around Times Square like there normally are. New York City and New York State. New York State has 25,000 cases of the coronavirus, where we in Kentucky, we have 124. So they're really trying to crack down on not letting people out. All right, so another famous inventor. So we all thank him for sure. This was the Model T down here. He was famous for creating the assembly line. So the first Model T that he made couldn't even turn. Like it literally had to run into something to stop, or they'd have to, after it ran out of energy, they had to go out and like slow it down because the brakes weren't great and it could not turn. But Henry Ford was another innovator in our country. Said early cars are handmade and expensive. Only several hundred or sold between 1893 and 1901. But he's going to revolutionize the car industry as well as other industries, because he's going to show us how to work on the assembly line. So let's see if this will play for us.
100 years ago, on October 1913, Henry Ford introduced one of history's great inventions, the assembly line. It transformed industry worldwide.
And the mass-produced Model T helped create the American middle class. Dean Reynolds went to Ford's original plant in Detroit to learn more.
The assembly line has always been an impressive mix of man and machine. What it looks like now is a far cry from a century ago, when Henry Ford first embraced the idea, one that wound up turning America into an industrial powerhouse with a thriving middle class. Bill Ford is executive chairman of Ford Motor Company and the great-grandson of Henry.
He had visited the meatpacking business in Illinois, and he saw there that the people were stationary and the product was moved to them. And he thought, well, why can't I apply that same principle to the car industry? So that's really where he got the innovation for it.
Until Ford's stroke of genius, his automobiles were basically custom-made trophies for the wealthy. That changed.
The assembly line did two things. One is it gave mobility to the average American, and the other is the employment in the plants helped create the middle class.
The process itself has aged well and continues to improve.
To build a quality car, you have to be able to have your operator be able to do it efficiently and to do it injury-free.
Allison Stevens is a technical specialist at the Economic Lab.
And you now are seeing
care if I
3D,
go,
and you are inside of one of our vehicles.
She showed us how, with 3D animation, she and her team can approximate an assembly line in the quiet of their office, testing parts and designs without the need to build an actual model.
You're seeing every fastener, every hole, every bend in the metal.
This virtual trial and error can tell Ford whether bolts turn, tires fit, or antennas are within reach to maximize efficiency up and down the actual line. Bill Ford likes that kind of thing.
The assembly line's changed a lot in 100 years. It's still an assembly line, and that to me is really remarkable.
The proof of that can be seen in car after car after car. For CBS This Morning Saturday, Dean Reynolds, Detroit.
Okay, so that was Henry Ford and his assembly line. More about his assembly line today, which is pretty incredible there. All right, so that was Henry Ford. So how did the automobile transform society? It transformed city life. No longer needed to have street cars to get to work to and from. It was also a common car. It was made for the commoners and not just like the wealthy elite. We're going to see a big explosion in the suburbs after Henry Ford, because now people don't have to walk to work or get on the streetcar, use public transportation. They can use their own private transportation. So today, nearly 58 million new vehicles hit the road each year. And another thing about the coronavirus that's affecting society today is you'll see the gas prices are way down because people are not driving. They're not going to work. And I'm sure your family's spending less and less a week on gas right now. The next group of entrepreneurs, they were bros. So Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison were not blood bros. These guys were blood bros. So in 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright made the first flight in the fixed wing aircraft at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. In 1919, the first regular passenger air service was established. I don't think this video is going to work. Actually, this one might work for us. So this should be their biography. So we'll see if this plays for us. Might need to go through an ad. So this is a little bit longer one.
Kept their money in a joint bank account. Even thought together, Wilbur said.
That's Wilbur Wright, born in 1867. His brother Orville was 4 years younger. And as every school child learns, the Dayton, Ohio duo became the first people in history to successfully pilot an engine-powered airplane.
They had this passion, this mission. They were obsessed to succeed.
But though their plane is proudly displayed at the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum in Washington, historian David McCullough still believes the Wright brothers are underappreciated.
Every time they went up in this motor-driven airplane, they were risking their lives. This is something that cannot be overemphasized.
So, in a new book published by CBS's Simon & Schuster, McCullough, who has won 2 Pulitzer Prizes, 2 National Book Awards, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, wants to reintroduce Americans to the Wright brothers and present someone else. There's a Wright sister.
Yes, her name was Catherine, and she was something. She stood about 5'1", and she was a powerhouse. This whole porch they built, the brothers
This
built
whole gingerbread effect,
Yep,
huh?
exactly what.
The 3 siblings lived in this house, now preserved at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. Their father, Milton, was a clergyman. Their mother, Susan, died of tuberculosis in 1889. 2 older siblings left home to start their own families.
The house had no running water, no indoor plumbing, no electricity, no telephone. But it did have books, lots of books.
Wilbur was planning to go to Yale when an accident changed everything.
He was hit in the teeth with a hockey stick playing hockey when he was about 18 and knocked out all his upper front teeth. And he retreated from the world, not going out to do much of anything ever for 3 years.
He ended up opening a bicycle shop with his brother in 1893. They even designed and hand-built their own brand of bike.
If you were coming in to buy a bicycle from the Wright Brothers, you'd come in this door, and you'd come over here, and Wilbur or Orville would wait on you.
But in their spare time, the brothers became obsessed with the idea of another form of transportation: flying, reading everything they could find about previous experiments. What was the public view of flying at this point? Was it considered a possibility?
Impossible. Human beings can't fly, won't fly, never fly.
Still, the Wrights started building flying machines right in their bicycle shop.
The wonder is that they did everything, not just themselves, but did it here and did it so well.
Starting in 1900, with Catherine managing things at home, the brothers would ship their contraptions to the gusty, isolated dunes of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. There's such a wealth of material here.
And the wealth of material is also representative of their really serious interest in photography.
Their photo collection is now kept at their namesake Wright State University in Dayton. It shows how they started with gliders, which often crashed, finally designing a biplane with an ultralight engine hand-built by one of their shop assistants. Success came on December 17, 1903. This is probably, as we say, the money shot.
Yes, that's one of the most famous pictures in history. And there's Wilbur running at the side, and Orville's taking off for the first time in all of history to fly, and he's only going to fly 120 feet, and he's only going to be in the air 12 seconds. But they knew immediately after this was over that they could do it, and they were onto something.
And that's where the story stops for most of us. But here, in a cow pasture on the outskirts of Dayton, is where David McCullough says the Wright brothers really invented the art of aviation, testing larger and more powerful planes.
Fly figure eight, everything.
Figure eights, all of that.
And
right
land
there.
and take off.
Meanwhile, the federal government was spending $70,000, a fortune in those days, on this so-called aerodrome, which crashed in the Potomac on takeoff. And no one in Washington seemed to care about what the Wright brothers were accomplishing on their own dime. What happened when they wrote and tried to get the federal government involved?
They were turned down. In fact, they had the door slammed in their face.
But the French, obsessed with aviation, took notice. In August 1908, huge crowds gathered to watch Wilbur Wright take to the air over the town of Lamar.
It went wild, and he was a hero instantly.
And the federal government finally says, aha, when they see that other nations, particularly France, are interested in this contraption.
They woke up, but they finally really, maybe we ought to take a look.
So Orville is commissioned to show his stuff in a series of flights at Fort Myer outside Washington. He is breaking all sorts of speed and endurance records when on September 17, 1908, he is assigned to take up a U.S. Army lieutenant named Thomas Selfridge.
They went up, and Orville crashed, and young Selfridge was killed. And he was the first fatality of a passenger in an airplane ever.
Orville is badly hurt, but nursed back to health by his sister Catherine.
She saw how terribly damaged he was, emotionally, physically. To her, it would be a miracle if he ever walked again, let alone flew an airplane.
Orville Wright would indeed fly again, and Catherine would go up too. The Wright brothers, who never married, became national heroes. Wilbur died of typhoid in 1912 at age 45. Orville would live until 1948, often accepting honors for what he and his brother accomplished. Their lives a symbol of the power of imagination.
What a testimony to human determination and ingenuity it is. A profoundly, profoundly American story.
Okay, so we have a couple entrepreneurs that were from very close to us in the Buckeye State of Ohio. So, like we said, new patterns and industrialization. We're going to start seeing the assembly line. That's going to allow for much more efficient mass production of goods. Department stores are going to sprout up. This is a picture of the Sears Roebuck catalog, and this would be, this is the Sears Tower right there. I had it there for a reason, but this is what you would get if you were kind of like similar to like today, like the Kohl's catalog or something, or like Toys R Us, which doesn't really even exist anymore. But if you got one of those things before Christmas, so look at the toys that you would like to get for Christmas. So we start seeing department stores, and you could order things through the mail and show up in your house. So this is all one of the nice things. There's some bad things about the Industrial Revolution. There's also some good things about the Industrial Revolution. And one of the nice things is that it gives you new goods for cheaper than you used to. And you're also putting people to work so they have money to use. And that goes right into this. By 1900, people were trading all over the world, and now we're going to have big steamships that can go all over the world a lot faster than the old Christopher Columbus, Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. You're having beef from Argentina. The Europeans had a really desire for beef. So beef cattle was raised out in South America, and now we're going to see refrigeration and these big steamships that is going to allow them to ship the beef from South America into where the major market for it was in Europe. Coffee from Brazil, iron from the North African country of Algeria. Those are just examples of people trading with people all over the world. The next question says, with its capital and military might, European countries start dominating the world's economy. In our AP class, we call this Europe's moment, whereas China and the world of Islam really got off to a great start in like current history. After, the scientific revolution, and next up after the scientific revolution is the Industrial Revolution, and that is Europe's moment. The working class is a term you'll hear in either first or second industrial revolutions. Working classes, we're just talking about like the laborers, your grunt laborers, and they were taught to basically do one thing in the factory. Education is a powerful thing, and the factory owners, they don't want their workers educated. They want them to just do one thing only in the factory. So this is a picture. This is kind of like a man's camp here. You can see a bunch of guys. There's a guy up here. You can see a hand back there. You can see a bro here, a guy here, a guy here. And this is just one half of the room. So this is the type of camps people live in. They'd be working 6 days a week. Be lucky to get that Sunday off, and talking about 13-hour work days, doing the same thing over and over and over again. Inside, there are definitely some opportunities for women to work in the factories, and we'll look into child labor in this class as well. But for the most part, a lot of the factory jobs are going to go to the men. And they're going to leave their families behind in what we would call these shanty towns or slums. And you can see this was the house of this family of probably looks like 4. Here's the mother and the 2 children, and their husband is off to work. One guy that didn't really agree with the factory system, he was probably an anti-American type of ideals, was Karl Marx. And Karl Marx, we're going to talk about in a little bit, he is known as the father of communism. He's actually from England, but communism is going to take shape in Russia. And after this kind of communist movement in Russia. They're going to cease to be known as Russia, and they're going to be known as the Soviet Union. So that's where we'll stop with our video here, and I will just post this up on Google Classroom for you to finish the lecture. Thank you very much. Let me just get out of this here.